This is episode 101, I think. And today we have Lindsay and Graham, and we're joined also by Shira. She's going to talk through her journey, getting a permaculture design, what inspired her, and how the process is going, and what it was like working with Lindsay and Graham. Welcome, guys.
Hey, Cormac. Good to see you again.
And you.
Good to be back, as always. Another patio, another garden.
Yeah. Do you want to just do a quick, short introduction, Graham?
Yes, Graham Towerton. I am the Chief Operations Officer for Permaculture Canada, working with Lindsay, and I am also the owner of Permaculture Adventures of Michigan that does all the landscape work with our customers here in Michigan.
Yeah, I'm Lindsay Brandon, CEO of Permaculture Canada and Armor Garden, which is getting a huge push. Here from Calgary, Alberta, and yeah, just narrowly avoiding the rainstorm.
And Shira.
Hi, I'm Shira. I am here in Michigan, and yeah, I've got my garden going, and I'm loving it.
Great stuff. And you'll find you over at the Very Prissy Gardener on Instagram, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yep, the Very Prissy Gardener. And I'll tell you, it's because I don't like bugs and I don't like dirt. But
So true story. When I met Shira the first time for doing the installation work to start putting together the quote, I asked her if she wanted to participate in the gardening activities. And the thing that she did was she showed me her fingernails. She said, "Did these look like the fingernails of a gardener?"
But she wanted a design, and you were so enthusiastic, I know. So I ended up doing the design, and I was training a fellow designer at the time, Gemma Coslin from Serendipity Permaculture. So the two of us worked on Shira's design, but I remember just how much energy you had and how excited you were to get started. And you said right off the bat, you're like, I don't know anything about what I'm doing here, but I want to do it. And it was obvious, like you definitely wanted to make a huge change in your yard. So you were fully on board, and you took it by the reins. And then right with your social media too, you went off, and I don't want to give too much away right at the beginning, but your enthusiasm definitely shows.
I do love it. I really love it. I love it a lot more than what I thought I would.
So Shira, we'll just start at the beginning, and basically, what led you to seek out a designer, or what inspired you to create the garden?
Well, I'll tell you. So I it was 2020 or 2021. It was just around the time where everything was very uneven. And I'm listening to different podcasts here and there, and they're talking about the state of the world and everything. And I want to just say, like, right off the bat, like, there was a little bit of fear when we had here in Michigan, at least, non-essential things in the stores, including gardening materials. And I'm looking around and I'm seeing that the shelves were looking a little bare. And and that kind of made me a little bit nervous, because I was like, no, wait a minute. And so from a security perspective, I was like, we really should know how to grow our own food. I don't know the first thing about doing that, but I would love to learn doing something like that. And I was not very, I kind of like froze for a little bit. And I was like, do I just get food buckets? What do I do? I don't even know exactly what to do. And I sat out on my porch, and it's funny, this bird just like landed right in front of me, and he had a worm in his mouth, and he was like looking at me, like really, really looking at me. And it's almost like I heard my Father in heaven say, like, consider the birds of the fields. They don't worry about when their next meal is going to come. They know that their Father loves them, and he's going to provide for them. And so how much more are you worth? And I was just like, okay, I'll take it. I'll take that, but you're going to have to show me what to do. And then as I'm listening to my different podcasts that next week, I was listening to Del Bigtree, and he was interviewing Jim Gale of Food Forest Abundance, and it made like such like it made it so tangible, because it was like, I don't have to be so overwhelmed with learning a new skill and trial and error and all of this stuff. I have a person that can plan my garden, Lindsay, Jen, and then somebody that can come and help me install it, or just install it all together if I don't want to do it. These nails, they don't want to do it. So, and it just took off from there. And like, I am taking and considering all of the suggestions that you guys are giving me, and they make me even more excited. And the more that I see things just grow because of the placement of the plants, and just like I'm just watching the food just grow in my backyard, and we have so much of it, and it has been so much fun to just I mean, it's like, now we're just trying things on our own. You know, me and my little kids, we just go out to the garden and try different things on our own. And it's like, it's okay if this little thing over here fails, because then we can try, you know, over here. It's not, it's, how am I trying to say this? Like, you know, it's that part of me that was feeling like I needed to have that security has been like, just like filled. I'm gonna be okay. My kids are gonna be okay. We have this new skill. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's very important, is the permission to fail, is when you're starting out. Because we all still have failures, even after many years. It just happens.
Oh yeah, and I've had some failures in Shira's garden with some things that we've planted that haven't been perfect. And the best example of that is blueberries. You know, when we discovered that the soil was too alkaline for them to really support the growth of blueberries, and we put them in pots this year. You know, so I gave Shira some brand new blueberries in pots, and I think you've got to harvest off those, correct, this year?
Oh yeah.
Which is great for first year blueberries. And then the good news is the ones that I took back, I put those in pots and rehabilitated those, and I got a crop off those as well. So it's part of permaculture to observe and interact. And we've done a lot of that at Shira's place, you know, where we've changed positions of some of the annuals to get better exposure to sunlight, where we've decided that we'd make different changes to what's in her raised bed gardens, because, you know, not everything has been successful. We've learned from it and we've moved forward.
Great stuff. And
yeah, on that note of like failure and success, because this is a topic that I've been just looking at in the past 24 hours. It's like, who is the measure of failure and who is the measure of success? Like, who says what is successful and what is failure, right? That requires a judgment of some other outer force or your inner guide that says that. But is any failure is actually success, because you learn through every failure that you have, right? So that's just a little side tangent.
Yeah.
So you're inspired to do the garden. What was the next steps? What was it like engaging with the design company? Just that initial steps.
It was excellent. I felt like you know, the steps that were given to me of just call this person, just, you know, they'll have you walk through everything that, you know, they went through all of the things that I like and what I don't like. I remember Lindsay asking me, like, how many hours do you expect to spend in your garden every day? And I was like, hours? Like, I don't want to spend hours out there. So, you know, it's like, even just down to those little details of like your personal family life and how it all works out there. And, you know, like whether you want livestock out there or you don't. And I mean, they can work with everything. So Lindsay did a really great job of, you know, like designing my garden. I loved the design, and then I loved watching it come into fruition, like literally.
And was there anything particularly surprised you about that initial conversation, as well as the hours, that you hadn't maybe thought of going on it?
I guess I kind of figured that there would be more, you know, like, well, you should know how to do some of this stuff. But I felt like everybody held my hand and was just like, okay, no problem. You know, like we will help you along the way. No problem. We can do that. We can help you with this. And if you need more help, just give us a call. You know, it was just perfect.
And that's not uncommon, Shira, at that time, especially, given the circumstances, surrounding, the pandemic and everything, and people having the same concerns about food security as you had. There were so many people seeking to change, their backyards into food production that came with zero experience. They just knew they needed to do something, and they wanted help. And so that's, I think, the success of the organization that we work for, bringing together so many people with experience. We could offer that to people from the very basic levels of not knowing anything to folks that maybe have grown a few plants to folks that actually did have experience but just wanted to change into more food production.
Yeah. Oh, and I also wanted to say too, with the installation process, I was kind of expecting it to be like a 2-year, like 2-season process, and then be done, and then everything be, growing fine and everything. And I am so thankful that it has not, because we just started out with, it was a lot of plants, but it wasn't everything. And I think that if we did put everything in the ground all at once, I would be so overwhelmed. But I'm not, because every year we just add a little bit more to it, a little bit more. And it's fun and it's exciting because every year is different.
Yeah, it's good, Graham, to help. Well, let's go back to the design, the actual process itself. So, Lindsay, how did that work with Shira? So, do you want to just explain for people who might know just basically the process? And then, Shira, if you want to just comment then about how you found that, about the was it 2-3 calls? And then was there many like redesigns or anything that might have changed in that early stages?
Yeah, sure. So standard design process is to have an initial consultation. And I like to give people a heads up, like these are types of questions that I'm going to be asking you. It's going to take about an hour. You don't have to answer all these questions right now, but it's just food for thought for people that might want to start generating ideas, because a lot of times in that initial consultation, failing here, people are overwhelmed, right, with the questions. They don't have the answers. So I like to give people a heads up, but we walk through the process of all the different levels of permaculture and the W's, like who, what, when, where, why are we doing this sort of thing. And we hammer it out in about an hour. Before the call is booked and perform, we have the base map already ready to go. So the designer's informed about the geography and the climate and all sorts of the weather patterns and the soil conditions. All of that is prepared in advance so that you can ask very specific questions about the particular land that you're working with and the person that you're working with. For instance, is there compaction in your soil, or do you see evidence of water runoff, or do you need protection from the hail?
And I say, Lindsay, if you're endangering life and limb there, don't.
It's just gonna get progressively harder to hear you, and I'll probably just progressively talk louder. Yeah, true. But anyway, so we do that first initial call. We already have the base map ready to go. I like to do a lot of live marking on my designs, and that's just my process as a designer. I have a Wacom tablet, so it's a drawing tablet that I can mark up and draw on it live with people to find out where all their doors and windows and downspouts and taps are, and mark that on my drawing because it's going to affect the placement of my plants. And then usually for, a smaller design, Shira is a bit bigger of a design. So, I think we probably allotted ourselves a month to do it. Usually a quarter acre is about 2 weeks. We can turn around that design. And then we come back and we have another conversation. And we present the draft of the design to our customer with the narrative, which has, the scope of the project and extra information inside of it, as well as a plant list. We present that to them, give them a weekend to kind of look at it and mull it over. Maybe they'll have some questions. Most of the time people are pretty overwhelmed and just like, oh, what am I looking at? So then we have this follow-up call where we go through all the placements in the design, why we chose what, why we put what where, and then inform them about the design choices, right? Because it's really educational. The consultations are an opportunity to divulge as much information as a permaculturalist to the people that we're working with. Because ideally we want them to feel confident, and we want them to want to take the reins and do this themselves. Because for me personally, it's about that. It's about reconnecting people to their properties, getting their shoes off and standing on soil or on the grass or whatnot, or just standing and being in that garden. But after the draft review, it's another hour. People can ask questions. They can make changes if they want. They can make suggestions about, I want more of this or less of this, or maybe we should move this there. But most of the time, I find people are pretty happy with the design that they're given. And then, once we have the final okay, then we give them their final documents, and then it's on to install. And currently, right now, I'm working a lot with Graham, which is amazing, because there's a lot of important communication that happens for the person that is designing and the person that actually has boots on the ground, right? So once the design, once the shovel hits the soil, is there a giant boulder there? Can I actually plant a tree here, right? These sorts of things take place. So the benefit of having an installer to work with as a designer, if you're not just doing it your personal self, is really important in terms of implementing the design that you've created and what it's going to be like on the ground. Because what we're creating as permaculturists is a conception. It's a conceptual design, right? This is the concept of what we think will fit here based on all the research that we've done. But of course, that there could be other environmental factors that could dictate it otherwise. I'm going to stop now.
Yeah. Yeah, just apologies for those listening for the background. Lindsay's in a storm there at the moment. So Shira, do you want to give us some feedback on that process and what was presented to you in the blueprint or the concept drawing?
Yeah. Lindsay got everything to me within a timely manner, just everything. And her presence just over Zoom just made me feel like she's got this. And what I really liked is that, she asked me what I liked and what I didn't like as far as food, like what does her family eat? You don't want to plant something that your family just doesn't eat. But then they also gave us lots of suggestions for like rain barrels or a chicken coop or all of those things and where they could be best placed in your yard. So even if you don't want those things right now, it's good to have on your plan, because later on you might want to branch out. Like I've been branching out with different things and I'm finding that I didn't want to do everything all at once. I'm in a stage of life where I can't really take care of a lot of livestock or anything outside right now, but it's not out of my mind completely. I'll say that.
Yay!
And then from there, I was put in touch with the person in Michigan who could install it, and that was Graham. And then Graham came out. No, we had a phone conversation first, and then you came out like just a few days later, and surveyed the land, took pictures, and was looking at the plan that we have going. And you told me basically like how you wanted to start it. And you said, definitely we need a deer fence because we have 1 million deer in my backyard all the time. And I think that's where we went from there. And he's been coming out regularly and just planting, helping me with all of my questions. I'm like, what is this kind of bug? Because it just ate all of my basil, how do I get rid of it without spraying? Because I don't want to spray. I don't want to, use chemicals or anything. And Graham has been a wealth of information.
Yeah, so Graham, so you get the design then from Lindsay. Do you want to talk us through that process as well and just how the interaction with Shira was?
Yeah, well, so, back in those days, I had been with Food Forest Abundance full-time since June of 2022, having joined them in January of 2022 part-time while I was still engineering. And so Shira's design was completed in June, just as I joined full time. And it was actually Ian Scott at the time, who was the director, contacted me and said, hey, we've got a new customer in Michigan needs an installation done and we don't have any installers. So he begged me to be an installer. And I'm like, I guess. So to be perfectly honest, I'd not done any work before. And, part of my conversation with Shira was, she asked me if I'd done any work like this before. And I said, well, not for Food Forest Abundance and not for any customers, on a formal basis. All my background was all of my own gardens and all of my farming work with my parents in Australia. So I figured I had the experience, but just not, the work that I'd done formally for other customers. So I had the design. I knew who Lindsay was. I knew who Jen was. At that point, I was working for a different design team leader before I became part of Lindsay's team. So I didn't have a lot of contact with Lindsay and Jen previously, but through this design, I needed to. So there's a lot of conversation backwards and forwards between me and Jen, specifically on some of the medicinals and herbals, and then some with Lindsay on, hey, can I change this because I found that, is in the way. So to have an example of that, there's that one conifer or evergreen tree that was in the middle of your backyard that was just like right where we didn't need it to be. And then there was a fence that ran right through the center of the plot that we had to remove. So there's all those kinds of discoveries that, sort of then changed, what the scope of work would be. It wasn't just a case of doing planting. So based on the design, based on going out there and doing the site visit with Shira, walking around, taking photos, I then had to sit down and go through the process of preparing a quote, bullet pointing all of the different materials that would need to be used. Because I've got my own farming operation here in Michigan and because I had the experience with a lot of construction work on my parents' place, I knew what I needed, so putting the cost together was just a matter of math, which as an engineer, I'm supposed to be good at. And so then it was a case of getting sources for all the plants, seeing what I could find locally, seeing what I needed to purchase. And, there's a lot of things that frankly, I couldn't get from my local nurseries. So I needed to go further afield and purchase stuff, get it delivered to my place, and then take it to Shira's and start the installation work. At that time, I had my second youngest daughter, Michaela, working with me. And so we went to the site and started tearing out the fence. And with Mr. Campbell's help and your dad's machinery, we got that fence pulled out and then started construction on the main fence, got that built, and then started bringing in all the raised bed planters. I think that was our next phase of the construction work was 6 raised bed planters. And then once we got those in and planted, that's when we then did the fruit trees and all the support plants for what was just, I think, 5 fruit trees to start with. So that was our phase 1. I'm grateful also, Shira, that, we were able to phase the work out because, frankly, for me and my daughter, I think if we had tried to do everything that was on your design, Lindsay and Jen are never shy about putting lots and lots of stuff into their designs. And, I've got proof of that with, the 3 or 4 most recent ones that Lindsay's done for customers of mine here in Michigan, where it's going to be 4 or 5 years before I can get all that work done.
Yeah.
It's also going to be 4 or 5 years before those customers can put together all of the money and resources that they need for that work to happen. So that works out good for me. It works out good for that, for Shira as well, that, we're able to phase the work over a number of years. So the second year we came in, we added some more fruit trees. We added your pergola in the back as well. We tried to convert that to a greenhouse unsuccessfully for the winter of 2024 into this year. There's a story about that we probably should not be told in public, but in any event, the greenhouse is not a good idea to put around a pergola. I'll just say that. In any event, we've done lots of new things that, last year and this year. I think the next main big project is to start terracing your slope and then install all of your medicinal gardens, which will be third summer for doing the work. So let's see, 22, 23, 24, 25. So this will be the 4th summer of work at Shira's place.
Well, and did you expect that? I think you mentioned already you didn't expect it to last so long.
No, I didn't expect that at all. I'm so glad that it is. And honestly, like the friendship that I have with Graham and his wife, his family, like it's like it makes a big difference just because like he has the heart of a teacher. So, and I just feel like, okay, when he's coming out here, he's showing me how to do all of this stuff. Like, and it's just, it's like, oh, Graham's back. Like, this is great. You know, so we are always so happy to see him, you know, not just because of the work. And so my kids, they all just run up to him, Mr. Graham. Yeah, so it's so cool because then we go out there, we're like, okay, what are we planting today? What do we got out here today? How do we take care of it? You know, and a lot of times I do need a refresher. So, you know, I'll send like a little email or a text or something and be like, when am I supposed to harvest these? Are they ready yet? You know? Yeah. But as these years are going by, I'm getting the hang of it. And so I'm not, feeling so unsteady about it all. It's actually, it's really fun. And I tell all of my friends, I'm like, you got to come over and see my garden. We'll have a little garden party. And when we do have people over and we have like, especially little kids, I love it when the little kids and all my kids' friends come over. I'm just like, go out there and eat all the berries that you can. I bet you can't eat all of them, you know, like, because there's so many. And, you know, they all go home with like a little bucket with like an extra plant in there just because like we have so many offshoots, you know, coming up from the ground. So it's like, here's my gift to you. Here, go plant this. And it's just, it's so much fun.
Yeah, Shira is already demonstrating the third ethic of permaculture, which is to share the surplus. She's sharing the berries, she's sharing the plants, and she's sharing the knowledge, more importantly. So it's been a lot of fun for me to go out there. I remember just, you know, the very first time that Michaela and I were doing the install work, and you know, this is one of my profile pictures now, is me and Michaela watering the garden with Shira's 3 kids after we just planted the raised bed gardens. And it's so much fun to show up there and have the kids come out, Mr. Graham, Mr. Graham. I enjoy that. There's been times where your oldest one has surprised me in the garden, where she snuck up on me and just said, hi. And scared the tar out of me. But it's fun and it's great to have that interaction because, you know, the kids, the next generation that we have is the most important one that needs to learn, because what I've learned here, especially in the US compared to my home country of Australia, is that the American family today is 2 or 3 generations removed from when they had to grow all of their own food. In Australia, it's probably 1 or 2 generations. But, you know, there's that transition that continues to occur where people get more and more removed from the source of where their food comes from. And when kids can learn that it comes from their own backyard and here's how to grow it and here's how to process it and here's how to eat it. And, you know, just to see the joy on your kids' faces, you know, when they're hunting for potatoes and, you know, doing their little treasure hunt by digging up the potatoes out of the ground and eating all the berries that they can. And then I show up with Julia last year and we eat all the berries we can. And there's still thousands of berries on those 5 rows. So it's been fun in so many ways, and you know, it has become like family for me, especially given that Shira's parents are across the street, and then her kids' cousins are across the street. So it's like I've got 5 other kids that I get to play with whenever I go to their place. So.
Also, like this whole permaculture movement is so wonderful because it's not competitive in like the business sense that we have. It's like everybody is rooting each other on. Everybody is hoping that your next door neighbor, your family will all join in and get their own permaculture garden going. And then, you know, like it is that family, you know, that you were just talking about. It's like, I know that, you know, like Lindsay is rooting for me and I'm rooting for her. And I'm just like, this is so great to just be, you know, in this type of a community where everybody wants everybody to have this abundance of food of experience and just connecting again with the earth. It's beautiful.
I just got to give I got to give a shout out to my daughter Lily, who's just joined the chat. She says she'd love to help at Shira's place. Hi, Shira. I'm Graham's second daughter.
Come.
I've said all in good time. So yeah, Lily has wanted to start coming across. She's been over here a couple of weeks at a time now, coming back from West Michigan. So yeah, she'll be coming up to your place as well. It's your mom's and dad's place.
Can't wait to hear.
Yeah, and I was just going to mention for people to follow you at the Percy Gardener, because you're hilarious. For one, like the content of your post is like super fun and really humorous, and I just love like the angle that you take it on. And then another thing that I wanted to mention is like I remember the design that we did for your property. You've probably done a quarter of it, right? There's the whole other side, and then there's all the fruit trees that were walking out to the barn as your privacy barrier. And then we didn't even really touch the pond. You know, Jen and I really wanted to. We had so many ideas for the pond, right? Like, let's get some riparian plantings in there and get some aeration going. Let's utilize this water. But it's like, as a designer, you have to know when to stop. Right? Because, you know, I have a pretty good framework of hours that I'll commit to a design for that purpose, because I won't. I'll just keep going. And it's like, oh, but you can do this. Oh, but then right? There's always like more that you can weave the patterns together and watch the energy flows. And, you know, as you create this narrative on the land, it's like more and reveals itself. So as a designer, you kind of have to know when to stop. And I know it probably doesn't look like I do because my designs are like so jacked, but I try to always purvey the information that like, this is the pie in the sky. This is a possibility of where you can go, but like what calls to you most as to where to begin. And we do scale that out for you, and like, well, obviously you're going to want to get your trees in the ground first so that they can, you know, have some fruit for you sooner than later, instead of your smaller medicinals, which is where you're going now, right, into the perennial medicinal gardens. But yeah, I was just wanting to mention that too. I'm still thinking about that pond.
Don't worry, Lindsay, because every time I go there, I look at the 5 acres of front lawn that Shira's got and go, hey, we need to plant that.
Right? And I always hope that, you know, through the process of, yes, this is too much, or maybe this is too much for me to afford or whatnot, I want to encourage people to say what you can propagate from what you have on your property. And I design that way as well. So it's like, you know, here's your majors. These are the guys that can come later on once you have a little bit more knowledge base and you do feel more confident. Start propagating off your apple trees, and then you don't have to have that extra cost to purchase full trees, right? And you can learn how to spread your berries around and all of that. Or maybe even by then you're doing plant shares with your neighbors because you have so much and you've got so much interest now in, like, your mom next door. Right away you had mentioned that. You're like, oh, my mom's going to want this too. And I was like, yes, man. That's great.
There's a great example, Lindsay, that you bring up about making changes on the fly and, you know, doing things based on what's already there. One of the things that was part of the design was to install a new mulberry tree. And while I'm out walking around, and I had to go down to the pond and take a close look at it, and then I saw that there were 3 like fully grown mulberry trees right on the shore of the pond. I'm like, Shira, you don't need another mulberry tree. What are we going to plant instead? You know,
I know.
And since then we've discovered, you know, we've discovered elderberries, you know, and we've discovered wild blackberry or wild raspberries, you know, so we've got a lot of stuff that's abundant in the area. And we've learned from that based on both her property and her parents' property across the street. There's a lot of stuff that if push came to shove, they could go and harvest certain medicinals. You know, there's an abundance of goldenrod, there's abundance of nettles, there's an abundance of all kinds of different plants that are already there that are native to the area. So I'm not taking a lot of those and saying, yeah, we need to plant these on your place as well, because they're right there out in the backyard or next to the pond or in amongst the swamp or across the street. So.
Mm-hmm.
There's another comment from the way she's.
Yeah. Lily saying grass isn't my favorite thing. It's not. I'm a grass killer.
Without using chemicals.
Yeah, without using chemicals. No, I mulch it to death.
Mulch it.
Weed whack it and mulch it to death.
So Shira, so you started off, you said at the start that it was slightly fear-based, and now it seems as if it's just you're enjoying it so much, the abundance of your. How has your approach changed, and how has it developed?
Well, I mean, so even though it was like, it started off with like a little bit of fear, I kind of feel like it was a little bit of a healthy fear, because I knew that even if I didn't have anything to fear, which we're right now in this, age of, like we can go to the grocery store, we can still get food, that this skill is so good to have. And it makes me so happy to just like have my garden, have food out there, send my kids out there whenever, like maybe they're just getting a little rowdy. Hey, can you guys go out there and go get some zucchini? There's so much zucchini right now. And it added like a whole new level of like home to our house, if that makes sense. And I mean, even my husband, he was like, okay, this is your wonderland, like whatever you're trying to do, like that's fine and everything. And now he loves it. He's running out there. Oh, I am going to have to be adding to my Instagram pretty soon though, too, just like Lindsay was saying, because now we have a groundhog. He dug a hole in, so we have adventures. How to get rid of that thing. But yeah, it is a wonderland for real. I really love it.
And I've seen Shira's approach change as well. So, I told you the true story at the front end about, are these the fingernails of a gardener? I then remember the post, I think it was probably at the end of the first summer where you were harvesting basil. And she says, it's happening, and turns around and shows her green thumb from picking the basil. So I've seen that as well. I mean, just, from the perspective of somebody who started with not a lot of experience in gardening, and perhaps not even a lot of interest in gardening before, now has a very, very sincere interest and is always looking at like, what can I do next? What's different that we can do this year? Putting beauty into the garden as well. So not necessarily part of the permaculture design that Lindsay and Jen did for Shira. We put those, was it rhododendrons out the front in that little triangle? And then we put the tulips out the front. So you've got some flowers as well. So, there's this now really sincere interest in gardening, in beauty, in the outdoors, in learning, in taking all the food. And, when she posted recently about all the zucchini that she's got, I sent her a message to say, hey, you don't have a zucchini surplus problem. You've got a zucchini recipe deficiency. So how can we help you with that problem? So you can learn to do all the different things with zucchini, just like me and my parents, and now me and my wife have had to do for many different years, is figure out what to do with 100 zucchini.
It's like, oh, darn.
Conversation came up yesterday in one of my initial consultations also, where she was worried about waste, about food waste and having too much. And I said, you know what, it's kind of a neurological twist that you got to do for yourself, that you're building soil for the most part. A lot of people, when you get to their sites, the organic matter content of their soil is so low that, the plants are doing the work of harvesting the minerals, and just let them go back on the ground. And, you don't have to take all your brush and all the dried leaves and things and put them over there somewhere in a compost. Like, just be chop and drop and put it on the ground. So not to worry so much about, I'm wasting food. It's like, no, you're building soil. So you're still doing something proactive. It's just kind of a little bit of a brain shift in terms of the way that we think about food, right? We think, oh no, it's wasting, but it's like, no, No, it's not. You know, there's things that are going to eat that are on the ground as well. There's birds and all sorts of things that are going to benefit from you leaving a little bit of extra, especially for, you know, the wild forage that's going to come through. Why not plant enough that if a deer comes through and tromps through and eats half your berries, you still have half your berries. So, you know, in a couple of the orchards that I've planted, that's exactly the case, right? Where half of it's going to them and half of it's going to be, or maybe, you know, a little different fraction, because yeah, some of it's going to end up on the ground and some of it's going to go up into the air, and that's okay.
Yep, that's certainly some things that we've done at Shira's place as well. I've had a couple times where her children have been out and collected the leaves and then used that for mulch around some of the trees. And then, you know, the chop and drop of comfrey. I can remember the first time that, you know, the comfrey just exploded and took over, and Shira's like, what do I do with this? I'm like, cut it down. And cut it down and spread it and, you know, put it onto the rest of the gardens to build the soil. And so, you know, I think, Shira, now you understand that you cannot possibly kill comfrey.
That's in my mind all the time. I'm like, Graham says there's no way you can kill this, so I'm just going to keep chopping.
You know, so you know, the soil at Shira's place really does actually need this as well, because underneath, you know, the lawn that she's had there, it's pretty much like beach sand. You know, so it doesn't have a lot of organic matter, doesn't have a lot of nutrition. So everything that we're doing there with things like comfrey, with, you know, using your leaves as a mulch, you know, which, you know, rots into the soil, everything there is putting that organic matter and nutrition back into the soil so that the plants will become healthier. And then, Lindsay, to your point about, you know, the wildlife, you know, we've had some benefits just from the birds coming in, you know, with that big 8-foot tall deer fence that we put up around the place. It's a natural perch for every bird to come and sit. But what that's also meant is that we've had, I think, 3 elderberries come up wild from seeds that have been planted by the birds.
Corn.
4? Yeah.
There's plants all laced throughout there that it's just like, hey, we can eat that too. And that's not something we planted. That's something that the birds planted.
Yeah. So we get those surprises every time we're out there of things that have come up wild, you know, because the birds have brought them in and deposited the naturally fertilized seeds right into her garden. All of the stuff that might not have happened before. So.
So Shira, what would you say to someone who wants to start out, or what would you say to yourself 5 years ago when you did start out about working with a designer and the difference between do it yourself and getting the design done?
I would do this process all over again. I would just tell anybody that is interested in this to just do it. It's a great community, and then you're going to learn so much more than if you were just to try to just do it yourself. At least for me. I mean, that's coming from me, who's like, I don't know what, you know, fertilizer is from topsoil, you know, like, and I think that this is such a great experience. I'm still in the middle of it, and it's just going to keep getting better and better.
Yeah. So would you you definitely recommend hiring a designer then rather than doing it yourself?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah. So you'd recommend working with, no, you were lucky to get Graham and Lindsay, but would you have any sort of recommendations for someone who's selecting a designer, or you just tell them to go to Lindsay?
Yeah, go for Lindsay. I don't really, I mean, that's kind of just what I did. I was like, just hand me whoever, you know, and, you know, I think that God just handed me the right people. And so, but I mean, now it seems like permaculture community has exploded, especially since COVID. And I think that you could probably interview people if you want to, but I like my people.
Yeah, so I'm actually offering that service now, that if someone's not sure what they need or what they want, I'm offering consults to help them pick a designer. And then I'll refer them then to Permaculture Canada if they need a design, or any others. They might just need a greenhouse, or they might just need a consult. But then if they're getting a full design, then Permaculture Canada are doing free. Are you still doing free strategy calls?
Yes.
Yeah, and then they can do your design as well. And then if you're in Michigan, Graham can install it for you.
Yeah, and Graham is doing install work actually in Michigan and Indiana and Ohio officially. But Graham's also going to be handing over a lot of that work to Julia, who's part of my team, and her partner Sean, who's moved up to be with us here. So the folks like Shira and her parents will continue to see me, but other new customers might not see me as much as they'd see Julia and Sean. So I've got to focus my time on a few other things personally now. So Cormac, you and I have worked together before as designers, and I know that you're capable of doing a lot of great work, and I appreciate all of the work that you're doing to support Permaculture Canada. Certainly for me, I'm going to continue my work with Permaculture Canada. Lindsay can't get rid of me. I told her many times she has to fire me to get rid of me. So we're going to continue to do all the design and consulting work, and I'm going to continue to build the permaculture business for the landscape installation perspective, but probably not be involved in doing all the hard labor myself.
Yeah, and we're being called upon for a lot of different work, as the years have developed, and we started with smaller scale food forest design. Things are getting larger and larger, and the needs are changing. In permaculture, where we're being called towards more community development. So really big, large-scale projects where we're assessing, land for people, helping them figure out, is this a good place to buy? People want to live the lifestyle. How do I even get off grid? So it's really interesting to see how the need has changed. Right? So we'll get Graham to work. He says he's not going to be doing labor, but I'm going to throw him into the mountains and show him another story. Big land movers and such, though. I want to learn how to do these big earthworks and whatnot. So driving tractors is in my future, and maybe I can come down there and learn that from you.
Yeah, in all truth, it's going to be hard for me to escape all of the things that can come up in permaculture. Just to give an example, Cormac, I've got the solar farm around me, and they asked me to put together a proposal for replacing all their dead trees that they put up for their screening barriers around the facility. I feel 90% confident that I'm going to get that work, and it's planting 1,100 trees and watering them and mulching them, and ultimately they want to give me access to 40 acres of their buffer zones, to put into permaculture. So those types of large-scale projects demand a lot of time. So I'm hopeful that we'll get that project, and then I'll get to see Lindsay's smiling face down here in Michigan when she comes to help me plant those 1,100 trees along with 4 or 5 other people. So, and then we'll start to use some of the heavy equipment to do some of these bigger jobs as well. So it's going to be a fun time. I got lots of expectations for some really big projects coming up that Lindsay and I are involved with for some healthcare systems in Indiana, to help them design permaculture gardens for their healthcare clinic campuses. So that's going to be exciting, is to work into the commercial scope for everything that we're doing with food as well. So a lot of good things coming up.
Great stuff. So glad to see you're doing well, and getting plenty of designs out there. Yeah, guys, any more questions for Shira before we go around the horn, just and just to see what we're up to?
Yes, so not a question, but more of a thank you for me to Shira, because not only did she have so much grace to work with me over the last 4 years, but also then referred me to her parents across the street. And you've seen a number of posts that I've made on my Instagram channel for work that I've done in that garden. I jokingly have to talk about which my customers are my favorites, and always put Shira and her parents at the same level so that neither of them get upset with me. But it's always fun, when both of them are present when I'm there and working, and they'll both come and hit me up and say, "Hey, what do you think about this? Should we do this? Should we do that?" And then they're both feeding off each other, and ganging up on me for all the next things that they'd like to get done. So it's fun again to work in that environment where it's not just me there being your traditional landscaper, where you come in, do the job, pack up, go home, and there's not a lot of communication with the customer other than here's your invoice and thanks very much if you pay it. So I've got that sense over the last 3 or 4 years that I am truly part of Shira's wider family. And I thank you for that. And I thank you for all the opportunities that you've given to us.
I am so thankful for all of you. Let me just tell you. Yeah, because it has, just enriched our life so much. Just like the entire process, all of the people involved in this. It's been great.
Awesome.
Thanks for sharing your story, Shira, with us, and trying to encourage more people who are on the fence to reach out to the designer. So thank you very much. So what's in the plan now then for the next few months before the winter sets in? What's next on the install plan?
Yeah, so for Shira's place specifically, I mentioned the need to do some terraces. So she's got a fairly significant slope at the top side of her garden, at the north end of it. And if we plant too much stuff in it, I think it's going to end up being eroded. So we're going to put in place some retaining walls and build some terraces there. That's a change from the design, Lindsay, that I think the medicinal gardens were meant to be at the south end, where we're going to put those at the north end and put them in the terrace beds, but still use most of the same plants. And so we've got that to start at Shira's place. Then in terms of like what else to do between now and winter, obviously harvest everything that can be harvested, and Shira's become very good at that with her kids and her husband to get out in the garden and bring things in. And, occasionally she'll say, okay, now what do I do with all of this food that I've got in here? And, we'll exchange recipes, or I'll give her tips on what she can do to store it and preserve it. And same with her parents as well. So there's a lot of food exchange that sometimes goes backwards and forwards between the two gardens, which is also great to see. In any event, then it will be like deciding, what else can we plant in the garden at fall, that's going to overwinter and need to come up then in the following spring. So there might be some wildflowers or something like that we'll put in, or maybe some fall plantings of some additional, trees and shrubs. But then for me and for my place, it's that time of the year where we try to work out what we can get done and figure out how many things we're not going to get done, and push the priorities onto the things that we can get done. And so we're about to hit peak harvest for a number of different crops. A lot of my fruit trees are ripening: peaches, apples, nectarines, etc. We're going to have a pretty good crop of apples and peaches this year. It's going to be in the hundreds of pounds of each of those. We've got pears to pick. We've planted an abundance of squash, and in terms of the interaction with Shira and her parents, this year we said that we wouldn't plant lots of what we'd call broadacre crops at Shira's and her parents' places. So things like potatoes and corn and squash that take up a lot of space. I said, instead of spending the money for me to come and plant those things for you and look after them for you, how about I just grow them and then sell you the produce? And so we've got a lot of squash and a lot of corn and a lot of potatoes that we've planted at my place this year. And, those are going to be coming into their harvest here in the next, probably couple 3 months. I think I planted 180 pounds of potatoes, as seed potatoes. So that could turn into a lot of potatoes. So I've done some experimental plots with the potatoes this year where I just planted them in straw and planted them in containers and that kind of stuff, just to see, if there's a better and easier way to grow them and harvest them without having to dig up the dirt 6 times. I've planted, a couple hundred corn plants and I think we've got maybe 50 or 60 squash plants in the ground that are going to produce a couple hundred squash. So I'm hopeful, Shira, that we'll show up at your place one day and that you'll have a desire to have lots of corn and squash and potatoes. So we've got that, and then we've got all of the routine things that we do here each year is to get the weeds under control before fall, get stuff mulched in fall so that, everything's going to be able to sit well through the winter. I've got a lot of transplanting to do of things that we've grown in pots this year, lots of seedlings that we need to plant out for trees that we've grown from seed. And then I've got a lot of things that we've decided we're going to propagate from cuttings and from seed. So we'll do a lot of, for example, wildflower planting this year. I've got a rain garden I want to put in the front yard. There was a post I made on Instagram where I cut a little ditch in my driveway to divert all the water into the front yard. So I want to put in a rain garden and put wildflowers all around it. And I've probably got, 150,000 wildflower seeds that I need to plant sometime here in fall. And so there's things like that during fall that I like to get done. And then there's probably a lot of bare root stock that I'll try to see if I can get on sale for some more fruit trees and see if I can get those in the ground this year as well.
Just flat them out there.
Well, and then, if we get that solar job, then, Lindsay spends October here in Michigan, so I can tell you that's what her fall garden plan is planting 1,100 trees with me.
Yeah, my fall garden plan is also immense. My parents, I have over 50 fruit tree bushes, plants out there in their garden, and they are going to be moving. So I've been treating their land like a nursery, thinking I'd have my land by now, but I still don't. So I'm in a position now where I've been offered a piece of land, just lease-free piece of land with a pond on it and some topography southeast facing, where he's willing to prepare the land and I could implement a new design with all my current plants. So that just means I got to go out to my parents' acreage and dig them all up and then move them. So that, this is something that's kind of on the roster of choice. The other option would be to go out there and get big enough pots that I can dig them up and overwinter them. I just moved houses, and in the back corner of my lot, it's really protected and quite sunny. So I might be able to also pot them all and huddle them up and kind of incubate them in the corner of the yard. But either way, I've got my work cut out for me in digging all those guys up, and hopefully they're not too choked. Lenny from Lens You Pick out here, he says, I'm pushing it with that 3-year boundary, but they might get angry with me, so we'll see. They're anywhere from 1 to 3 years old, a lot of these. So yeah, some of them, if they don't want to leave the land, I'm not going to force them. But it'll be interesting to, pick up everything that I have and recreate a design and put it back in the ground. I don't know. I'm destined to always be moving. This time my plants are coming with me. How about you, Cormac?
Yes. I've been quiet this last month. Haven't really done much. Kids are off, so we're quite busy. So me, you mentioned bamboo there. I have a bamboo to tackle. I tried tackling it in June, and it's a wedge down there. I don't know what I'm going to do. And the thought was just to dig it up and propagate, but when I started digging, I was digging for 2 hours and it wasn't making any progress. It's just like a mat of bamboo. So I think I'm having to lift the path and dig a trench in front of it, so I can then dig into it, and just give me a face that I can actually access it. So that was a bit of a challenge. And then I'm sort of relaunching, not offering design services, but just trying to offer consults and like bridge the gap maybe between clients who aren't sure, and then chatting them and then finding them the correct designer, whether they want a local designer or like Permaculture Canada, more international, and just trying to find it and then working on their behalf, liaising with the designer, just in case they're not sure, they sort of represent their best interest. So like a concierge basically for them. So whether that's a company or an individual, or a community just trying to work on their behalf to find the right product for them in the right place, the right time. So we'll see how that works out.
Awesome.
So I have a lot of work to do, web work, sales funnels, that type of stuff. Not really exciting. And then just probably getting everything I can then again. So just more perennials. But we should be able to start doing it now in a couple of weeks. The temperature's dropping. I'll tackle that bamboo again. It's probably going to take me a couple of weeks.
Awesome, Cormac. And then I guess from a company perspective, I want to throw out there too that we've got some exciting news coming up. So we are in the process of building now the website for Armour Garden. And Armour Garden has always been part of permaculture ever since Permaculture Canada was first started, or shortly thereafter. The concept of Armour Garden came up when Lindsay and I were in Kansas last year in May. And that's now going to have its own website, and it's going to have a lot of activity with one of our strategic partners helping to direct traffic to it, much the same way as you, Cormac, in terms of being a concierge. He's going to help with marketing and driving traffic to that website, but that's going to host all of the design work and homesteading support for folks that want to do something like Shira has done. Armourgarden.world will be the place for that.
Yeah, great stuff. Well, let me know when is it fully launched yet? Is it on there now or?
No, it's not right now. If you go to armourgarden.world, it's going to point you to a page on the Permaculture Canada .world website. But probably here within the next 2 to 3 weeks, it'll be up, and then it'll have its own standalone website.
Great stuff. That sounds exciting.
Yep.
Guys, thanks very much. Shira, again, thank you. It's been really interesting hearing your perspective. I've been Graham has mentioned you a whole lot over the last couple of years, all positive. And I have been watching your Instagram posts as well. The garden looks amazing.
Thank you. And thank you for interviewing me. Yeah, I just wanted to just put out there, like, I am just, like, I just took advantage of this. I'm not like much of a Instagrammer, I guess. So I don't post often. But when I do, it's fun,
Yeah, whenever she does, it's quality work, I tell you.
Yeah.
Well, for those listening, any final words here, Lindsay?
It's just good to see you, Shira. It's great to connect and see your face again and hang out. So I'm glad you're pleased with all the work that we've done together.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks. And if you're looking for help, again, the link's in the description for a consult. If you're looking for design from Permaculture Canada, the link's there as well as the 2 links in the description. And then Shira, what's your Instagram handle again?
The Very Prissy Gardener.
Over on Instagram. Guys, thanks very much. And for those listening, that was the Permaculture Vine podcast. And we'll see you on the live next month. And we have an interview coming out next week with Dave Spicer, the earthworks specialist. So that was an interesting one. And I'll chat to you all. See you all soon.
Cheers.
All right. Bye-bye.
We're still live.